and we got our foot in the door on the next mission. It culminated with you guys arriving here at this car park that is very, very close to the Plutonion, the entrance into the other dimension. And as in the, what was it, 3 times already that you've done this? 2 or 3 times? When you get close, you got to start a little search using the tuner. You got to find the exact entrance, the membrane where the passageway is the weakest, and press through. At the mall, it was like descending an escalator into oblivion, where at some point, real Grant got swapped out with fake Grant upon entering into the place. And, shenanigans ensued. What happened before you arrived here? Like, kind of in the pre-mission part of this mission? Because you were driving here, and I think... Did Dan... Yeah, Bogdanov gave you a call on the phone. And you, rather than replying to him, I think you just held the phone open so that everybody could hear Bogdanov announcing that he was here. He was, in his own way, kind of like apologetic. He mentioned how he didn't want you to be wrapped up in any of this, Gary, but it just kind of came to this. And that this agency you're working with has now become his target in some way.
I feel like all mob bosses tell somebody that.
It was only business.
Yeah. That's how they justify it.
It always comes up that way, yeah.
It's going to be a really big payday for Bogdanov to get him to kill 2 of his golden geese here.
And I think here is an operative word, because Bogdanov is all set up to find you at this location. This is one of the locations you guys did a bunch of science with the agency to, like, pinpoint, right? In order to know where this spot is, Bogdanov would have had to have had some inside information. This is inside information that you don't know about, Dan. You don't know how Bogdanov would be here either. Everybody's kind of in the dark on how this particular contact would have found this stuff out. But there's no where this information could have come from besides the agency, right?
We made this plan at the Hive.
You saying the Hive's not agency?
It's a agency adjacent.
Was there any info on that paperwork that I left at the red light in that pocket dimension that had anything to do with what
Bogdanov was doing? Mathematician's notes. No, everything he dug up came from a period of time that might be anywhere from 5 to 10 years ago. Bogdanov is not in the notes there, although... Yeah, Bogdanov's presence is a weird one. He's a mysterious figure.
You say 10 years ago, that means it would have been 1990, so that could have been incredibly irrelevant.
Actually, yeah, according to Bogdanov, he was still tooling around the Soviet Union until, like, 88 or 89. Okie doke. That brings us to the here and now. While you were driving into this car park and going up the levels, someone had sprung out a tire trap for you, and Gary just ramped right over it. It snagged onto the bottom of the truck, and he's been dragging it along for a while. It's been kicking up sparks. But it failed to stop the new souped-up vehicle that the agency has afforded to you. It was after this that Brian Chen somebody who, at the beginning of the last session, Gary said, you want to catch a bad guy, too. I think that was what happened. Last session was like a sandwich of... at the beginning, Gary spotted Bogdanov meddling in his warehouse, called up Brian Chen and said, I have a special job for you. At the end of the session, Brian Chen shows up, says there's been an ambush.
It was a book closing moment. Yeah.
And thus, Brian Chen is here in the bed of the truck he's kind of like hopped on. So here we are. Whatever threat has thrown the tire trap underneath the truck, you can't see. Wherever they are in this facility, they're not visible to you right now. You got a call from Bogdanov that an ambush was waiting for you. And where these entities are that ambushed you, where him and his Vori goons might be hiding, you're not yet sure about, Gary. There's a number of things that I should bring to your attention, Gary. One is Bogdanov tipped you off, and that's weird. Like, why would he call you? An ambush is all the better if a guy doesn't call you on phone and tell you he's ambushing you after the ambush. So, for one reason or another, he got you on the horn to tell you what was going down. Right now, you don't see him and his goons, but you are driving. You could drive around and start looking for them. I believe you said you wanted to drive kind of more slowly and more casually. The car park is fairly empty. Not conspicuously so, but it's not a time where people are doing a lot of travel. There's only a few cars you pass here and there, and you feel like a lot of them are just airport staff. So the car park is relatively empty. All pretty well lit open spaces in here. What does Gary want to do? Because there's a number of things that you could do. You could ignore the threat of Bogdanov for now and tell the team to just see if you can find the other dimension quickly and just avoid him and his dudes. You could face him head on. You could go driving around looking for him, keep your eyes peeled on where he might be. You could give him a call back on the phone, or you could organize teams here to find him and the Plutonion at the same time.
I don't like that he's lurking. Like, if we don't find him, like, he's gonna show up later when we're fighting the big bad evil guy.
Yeah, that is true. And if you don't find him and he is somehow watching you, he'll see how you get into the other dimension. That will be a big... You feel like that's probably what the agency doesn't want, is other people to know how to get into these places.
Yeah, and it would suck to have a dimension that goes to, like, opens up the other end in Russia.
It's a shortcut to deliver the nukes.
Yeah, that just sounds like a bad time.
That's definitely what... The reason the agency exists, in part, is probably to make sure that America has access to the supernatural ghost world before its enemies do. So you want to hunt down where Bogdanov and his goons are trying to ambush you, I suppose, then.
I feel like that's the immediate threat. We just don't see it. Because it could happen at any time, and that's what we don't want.
Yeah. Now, you had a team of 5 with Brian Chen in the bed of the truck. You now have a team of 6. He's like sitting in the bed of the truck, but he's leaning over. He talked to you through the driver's side window when he showed up. So you can give him any kind of like orders or bounce anything off him or the team where you're here. But you posit this to the team. What do you guys think? Gary is of the opinion you should be going after Bogdanov right now.
Brian Chin doesn't seem like the type of person to be a snitch, does he?
Not really.
Like he doesn't have an inside deal with Bogdanov.
He is unusually new to the team, but
There's not a lot of people that it could be. That would give up information to him. Like most of the people that I would think it is are all dead. So I don't.
Yeah. So there is. You think there might be some outside chance that Brian Chen. If you want, you could run a spirit roll here to get a vibe off of Chen. Why he showed up when he showed up. Why he's here ahead of time.
Did Brian Chin show up to that warehouse when we were killing that dude?
Oh, yeah.
He was already there, yeah.
He killed the dude, no?
Yeah, he's the one that killed the dude. He pulled the trigger on Honeycomb's order, so
Yeah.
that kind of vouches for him if he's willing to kill off.
Well, he was
Bogdanov.
there. He just killed a dude, and we know that Bogdanov isn't necessarily like attached to any particular dude because he's putting them through the farm at my boxing ring.
Right, yeah. That's also true. On the
If
one
they-
hand,
if their faces get broken, he just gets new dudes with new faces, or whatever he said.
yeah.
So
You're
I
a
don't
little
like.
s-
I
kinda
feel like
suspicious.
if Brian Chen killed this guy and he actually is undercover, like that's not an issue with Bogdanov for him to like sacrifice a random dude and then pretend like he didn't give up info. But let's see. I think
It would be sort of like Brian Chen is a canny operator in combat. It would be unusual for him to put himself into the ambush side of the ambush.
I like whispers here. I think this is not just a vibe you've had, but maybe when you decided to work with Chen to root out Bogdanov. Because remember, at the beginning of last session, you were like, I got a job for you, Brian Chen. Maybe you've been keeping tabs on it. Maybe whispers represents not what you're doing now, but also what you've been doing all along, which is making sure that you can trust your employees. This is something that I have a feeling Gary's pretty good at now that his operation has gotten bigger and bigger. So let's do that to get a vibe on Brian Chen. Hey, you get a free karma out of your boosted whispers roll there.
nice.
And you couldn't have failed, so it is a success here.
That's a win-win.
That's kind of incredible, yeah. Kind of works for the nature of this role, too. You have been keeping tabs on Chen. You were researching Chen before and after you talked to him about joining you to help deal with Bogdanov. Chen's history goes back pretty far into when he was part of that private security firm and was helping the Cosmosophers against his better judgment. When he started working with the agency, he became pretty loyal to the agency's side of things. You feel like he's pretty squeaky clean. And in fact, if Bogdanov was monitoring somebody, you believe Bogdanov might have been monitoring him more than you. Bogdanov might have gotten a little suspicious about Brian Chen being around his places of operation and occasionally showing up at a warehouse or two. So you were watching a guy being watched by a guy. If anything, Bogdanov may have found out that it was Brian Chen that pulled the trigger on one of his dudes, And not that he has a big beef with him, but he would have no trouble, you think, killing Brian Chen first, getting him out of the picture. So, in your mind, very trustworthy, this Chen character. Trustworthy enough, in fact, that if you needed him to be part of some team you sent out to do a second task, you could send him on it.
He's a consummate professional.
Very, yeah. You deem him very professional at this. And armed with that knowledge, what do you want to do, Gary? You want to find where Bogdanov is, I would imagine.
Yep.
Now, does that involve just driving through this facility? Or do you want to devise any other kind of plan? If you drive slowly and like look around, you can have your team behind you here checking out the windows, trying to get some information. There might be some other way you want to go about it besides just driving up and down the aisles.
This is just like a regular parking garage?
Yeah, just like a multi-level parking garage, surprisingly tall for how empty it seems to be up in these higher levels.
Do they have one of those, like the manned, like security booths where they would have maybe cameras on every level that we could go look at?
That's interesting. Yeah, you see a kiosk, and you have seen, driving through here, CCTV cameras up in the corners now and then. The parking garage is very loud. I don't know how long it's been since you've been in one, but they are some of the loudest places on Earth. They have these industrial fans blowing. This one in particular has these huge fans in the corner. And if you're just in the place, it sounds like wind. But if you're parked right next to one of these industrial fans, you can't even like talk to anybody. You could scream at the top of your lungs and nobody would hear you. And so the place is pretty noisy. Faintly above the noise of all the wind blowing around in this place, you hear a song playing. Kind of distant, but you know what song it is, but you can't really hear the voices or any of the melodies too strongly. It's California Dreamin'. Gary, you drive up to where you see one of these security kiosks. How do you want to roll up? Because it's probably, there might be somebody there, but it could be empty. You want to just drive up and see who's in there if possible?
Yeah.
Okay. You drive on up. You look in through the window. There isn't anybody in there, and the door appears to be locked. But you can see a divided screen that has like multiple different cameras displayed on it through the window. You'll have to get out of the truck or send somebody out of the truck to look at that camera. Now, if you like, you could keep the truck running and keep driving and instead baton pass and ask somebody to check the cameras.
Yeah. I'm thinking there's a way that someone can check these cameras more remotely. Maybe Grant.
You want to send Grant? He's the one guy who's not here today. But I can have him go out.
He does know cameras.
But he knows cameras.
And he
yeah.
does know camera. He is the perfect guy for the job in a lot of ways. All right, yeah. I accept it.
You just make him work remotely. It'll be fine.
Grant hops out of the back side of the truck here, presses his face up against the window and looks through the cameras. As I said, it's super loud out there, and by this kiosk is where one of those huge industrial fans ventilating the space is. So rather than trying to shout back at you, Gary, he gives you some hand signs here. He shows 4, like the number 4, and then he points up once and then up again a second time. He's pointed up twice and told you that there's 4 of something there.
Maybe that's the 4th floor. Or go up 4.
I understood it would be 2 floors up with four guys there.
Or that.
Honeycomb calls up with some information here. And the other thing that you notice, Honeycomb, as you're looking out at these symbols, is that Grant does this like both hands holding a pole kind of gesture. And you recognize that to be like the pose you'd be in riding a motorcycle. Gives you a motorcycle riding pose when he looks back from the kiosk.
Oh, so it's a horizontal pole. It's not like a vertical pole pointed at his mouth.
Not that particular gesture, no.
Looks like the enemy's got wheels.
Well, how do we want to go about? Maybe we want to send a. Like, if we know where they're at, maybe we send a. Like, incognito group.
Send some people up on foot to deal with the group.
Or at least have them, like, if we're going to just drive up there, have them swing in if something goes down. Like, we've got to have some kind of, like, backup group here, I feel like.
In case the truck goes down.
Grant rings up your cell phone, Gary, and Grant says, as long as I'm on the phone, I could stay watching these cameras. I could give you an alert if something changes, if they run off somewhere. I'm not sure they're all in one group. It looked like they were talking to somebody who moved out of frame.
It's got to be Bogdanov.
Maybe. None of these guys look like Bogdanov. Not how you've mentioned him.
There's probably more than one Bogdanov in the Bogdanov crime family.
Oh, I thought you were going to say alternate universe Bogdanovs were working together.
That would be a shitty thing.
Just a wall of Bogdanovs marching in.
Like the past, present, and future Bogdanovs, and one that's in the fourth dimension.
So, Grant says he'll stay here by the cameras, and he can watch this place. Give you a heads up if anything goes down here.
I like
Perfecto.
Gary's plan of we could send in like a couple of us as like foot scouts who might be able to like intervene if there's an ambush.
Yeah, it's like the old sniper on the roof next door trick.
Okay.
You see. Oh, wait.
Oh, who wants to be our scouts then?
Dan will
I
get it.
think Brian Chen should be one.
Okay, I'm on it. Dan, you said you wanted to go as well.
I'll keep the rookie company.
Honeycomb,
Yes.
you going to join the scout group or are you going to stay with Gary?
I'll stay with Gary.
Okay. That leaves Kachina.
So I wasn't thinking about how my character was going to fit in this plan. Or I didn't successfully think of something that would help me fit in this plan.
Kachina could be good in the Dan group. We know Kachina's pretty good on sneaking and creeping up places.
Well, if we've got like a group that can like drive up there and we've got a group that can swing in, maybe we have like one or two people that take the steps or the
Just
elevator.
the bait or what?
I mean, just spread our load out and like maybe they won't even recognize that the person taking an elevator is a part of this, right?
Oh, okay.
Mm.
Well, I don't know how much they know about us, but this is a good idea.
Like it's a right. We don't know, but now's our chance to find out. And if they do recognize you, then we know. But also, like a normal parking garage would do normal business. So if we spread out, like the person in the elevator maybe is just a normal business person to them. Like they might be looking for the group to swing in
Mm.
because maybe they are going to do the same thing.
Okay. So to kind of cover for that, this building, right? Like, say if they come by and they find me, I could just go up a floor and be like, nope.
Yeah, they may not really know who they're looking for in particular. You have
They'll
a feeling
know me.
they'll probably know you, and they might have they might have one or more of your pictures, but all of them, maybe not.
Like that'd be some seriously good insight.
I
Yeah.
had to, like, if I were to guess, they probably have information about me and Honeycomb, and not Dan, because Dan's been in it for so long, he might not have thought about it, and Grant is still relatively new, so he might not have files on him.
Grant's probably the safest of the whole bunch, just to stay here by the kiosk.
Yeah.
So I guess the question too is, we know that Dan and Brian Chen are going on foot in a different direction, maybe heading up the elevators, like Gary said. Are you going with them, Kachina?
Them in this situation? Sorry. Who is them in this situation? I'm sorry.
Dan and Mr. Chen.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
They could be a useful bunch. That's a pairing we don't see much either. Classic. I don't think Kachina and Dan have been in a pairing together since their flight to Oregon.
Yeah, and that was kind of a family psychiatry thing, or just kind of, see what makes Dan tick, and that's kind of important.
We were in the harbor together. She made me Jesus.
Oh, that's
Oh,
right.
yeah.
Yeah, she showed up there to.
It's like, hey,
Like
you want
walking
to
on water.
be Jesus for a moment? There you go. It's your dream.
So, Team Gary and Honeycomb, you're taking the truck, or are you also going to go on foot, but in a more direct route?
I thought truck, right? We speed
The
in.
truck. Yeah.
The
Staying in
foot
the old
soldiers
truck.
are there to protect us from ambush, and I'm just firing the Glock out the window of the truck.
Yep.
Excellent.
That's exactly how I pictured it.
Okay.
One guy's driving, the other guy's shooting. It's like a Starsky and Hutch mix somehow. Except the temperaments are reversed.
It's a real
All right,
reverse
so-
Starsky and Hutch situation.
More of
I
a
think if you're
Hutch and
gonna
Starsky.
be a shooter, you want to be the Snoop Dogg in the equation because he gets out of every murder case he's in.
Yeah. Okay.
Especially in the early 2000s.
Snoop is already in this particular car park in his own shootout. So we got Kachina and Dan and Brian Chen have been dropped off. The other two of you are going up the ramps around the building to catch up with who you want to catch up with. So let's do the Kachina Dan sequence first here. So you guys are dropped off in the building somewhere. 2 floors up, according to Grant's intel, is where at least some of these guys are, and they're on motorcycles. You do see a stairwell nearby, Dan, and you also see the elevators. Right now, it says that you are on departures level, whatever that's meant to mean here, according to the elevator. But it also says you're on floor 2 of the car park.
I feel like Dan would have the advantage in navigating car parks.
Do I have a sense of which level, like...
Well, Grant suggested there were 2 above you, whoever he saw on the cameras.
Right. And the layout here, it's classic car park. There's one central sort of screw-shaped ramp up.
It's like a two wings situation. So there's ramps up on the outsides of the building. But yeah, it's basically a screw shape. And then up the center, you have your ventilated stairwell that you're close to here.
What's what? Before we sort of tackle this, what's Kachina's plan here? Like, if we get into a shootout, what does Kachina do?
Go into the roof of the elevator.
Turn you into Jesus.
She had you walking on water before. She might be able to come up with something.
Well,
Yeah.
if they use flamethrowers, you can give proof against flame. Don't forget that.
Interesting. If something catches fire. Kachina also has Aikido, so if she just needs to like tackle somebody off of something, pin them down.
I can disable them. I can't really. I'm not gonna like actually hurt them. That's the thing. But if I need to somehow knock them unconscious, I don't think I'd be opposed to that. Could use the non-lethal route for extra points.
And also, for as long as the stealth holds up, if you just want to get a good view, see what they're up to, eavesdrop a bit before moving in, Kachina
Be
could
the most
definitely help with
effective
that.
until we're spotted, essentially.
I'm just trying to think of what is the thing they will not expect us to do here. It's really like a car park is constructed such that there are very specific ways of getting up and down it.
Well, we could get rid of a specific way to get back down it. If we could find another car, we could just block it, park it in the way.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, hijack a car and move into a position so that nobody can get down from the top. If you want to trap them in.
Oh, does anyone have like? Oh man, I was gonna suggest like climbing the side of the building.
Yeah, if it was one of the like open style car parks where like exactly.
So this is what, whenever it comes to like where the screw shape, the driving parts are, nobody's parked in these spots despite the layout appearance here. But there's like a drive-through zone that you can see the outside of the building and the concrete height of it. Although the one in this picture is not as high as the one I imagine. The one I imagine is 6 stories instead of 4.
And this is what I'm like. We might not necessarily need them to scale the outside, because in the ones like this, they have the metal railings. Like, so if you're like, as you're going up the level of the ramp in the parking garage, if you're parked on the ramp, there's like a metal like fence there in the way,
Yeah,
so that you couldn't drive your car over it. But if you go up the inside, like that's all open. It's like a stairwell with no steps. So you could kind of scale the fence on the inside instead of the outside, and probably be less likely to be seen by somebody who's thinking to do the same thing. Because if they're gonna ambush us, they would probably do the outside one.
So maybe the plan then is blockade the passage down and have people from your team scale from the top downward?
It probably makes sense for me and Gary to blockade the exit while they like mount this climb. If that's what we're doing.
Yeah, I think like they're expecting this car to make it up there, right? Like, what if it never does?
they'll have to come down looking for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's no way they're getting through this car.
Like I said, the way up is really just about the width of one vehicle. So if you went up the wrong way, nobody could get past you. They would be coming down. The first thing they would hit is you.
Yeah.
Love this plan. All right, what is step number 1? And who do we have to see here? I'm going to let you do the baton pass, Gary. You can actually, if you're ready to set up for part of it and what roles that will require, you could do that now. If you want to throw it over to Kachina and her team to get in position here.
Yeah,
Let's
which
go
side?
ahead and get the truck into position, and then we'll give it to Kachina.
Okay.
Okay. So getting the truck in position really is just finding the right place, kind of being sneaky about it, I imagine, and making sure there's no way they can move around the sides. Now, Honeycomb, you saw the little motorcycle signal that you were given. So if you, like, there's ways around the truck if you don't want to block the whole path. But if you do want to block the whole path so they physically can't get around you, you could also do that. How do you want to position this truck? Is it just so that you intercept them if they come down, or is it so they physically get blockaded if they try to get past?
I don't understand the distinction there.
I think the only distinction is if you think they're coming for somebody else, they just try to get around your truck. They might not even... They might go past your truck.
I mean,
They might not. Yeah.
it'll be easier for us to move if we have to, if we leave a little bit of space.
Yes.
But like, just like not so much that it's easy for the motorcycle to cruise through. Like, it's going to be a difficult. They're going to have to slow down, maybe even like specifically navigate through the slot.
Okay. I get it. And you also want to be in a place where they haven't seen you until they're already kind of bumping into you. I think that's what the spirit role is here, Gary, is positioning the car so that nobody can spot it until they've already got caught by you. A little stealth positioning. Shadow could be good for that. I like it. Yeah.
Maybe at the bottom of one of the ramps.
Yeah, like around a blind corner.
Yeah. There's tons of those in parking garages.
Well, yeah.
Nice. Okay, perfect roll. Let me illuminate some stuff here about your potential opposition. Now you're playing the waiting game, Gary. Your team is setting up, but the moment something happens, your vehicle will be in position here around this relatively blind corner. What's Honeycomb doing to set up? Are you staying in the truck, or do you have the door of the truck open and you're outside but ready to hop back in? It's a lot more mobility you have if you're next to but not inside of the truck. If you wanted to be somewhere.
Yeah, I'll be next to the truck, ready to hop in. But like, I can hop into either side of the truck, right? Because I want to be on the side where I would have coverage relative to where the motorcycles would be coming from.
You could also be ready to hop into the bed of the truck. There's a lot of advantage to being there too.
Sure.
Okay.
And I will have my gun loaded. I don't know if I have to tell you that.
It is loaded, fully ready. Okay. I don't know if that requires a roll. Just position outside there. So, baton pass to either Dan or Kachina. We will see what they are up to here.
We're gonna go with Kachina.
All right.
Well, it's my decision, but sure.
Oh.
Who's got
Kachina.
the baton here?
I was thinking the same thing, but I don't like that my agency has been taken away.
Kachina are back on the floor where you were dropped off by Gary and Honeycomb. Wherever they went, you're not sure what position they're in. But what your team right now is sorely lacking is a little more information. What these guys are up to, what they're doing. Grant saw them in the process of, like, going somewhere. So they may even be on the move. Maybe the faster you get to where you want to be, the faster you can get eyes on them, track them down.
I have to figure if it's faster to climb up than down, or, because if I want to climb down, we got to go up really fast.
Well, they are above you, so it's just going to be scaling the exterior with some of the fencing, which I
Yeah,
have to believe is
I'm just
nearby.
wondering the specific outside, because I don't think I've ever actually seen the outside of a car park like this, so I'm just trying to imagine how that would work to try to climb it. Like, I'm imagining those metal fences, but I don't know how big they are, and I get that there's rungs.
So Chena goes over toward one of the places where the car park opens up to the outside, and there are these metal fences that go up a bit, then they taper off, and then there's some bars on the floor above, and then some long bars that are vertical that you could kind of shimmy up if you wanted to the next level. Not an easy climb by any stretch of the imagination, but certainly not impossible. It's the stealthiest way to do it with a little added risk. And if you climbed up to the 4th floor, you'd actually be on the ramp at the end of the 4th floor, which means you'd be above and behind where Grant saw them last. So climbing up
That
2
would be
floors from where you are,
significantly good.
would be the flanker position here.
Okay, and do we have some kind of rope or anything like that? Because I don't know if we're just going to go individually, if we're just going to try to chain gang up it.
I have the sense that you've got a lot in the kit you carry around as a survivalist.
Yeah. I mean, there's
Probably
just a
have a bit
rope.
of-
It's not going to be like, modern tech, but it's going to be a freaking rope.
Yeah, probably the kind of thing you just want to tighten around the bar you're climbing if you're like as part of the process shimmying up. The thing you find,
It's not going to be tight until I get up there, but I'll just make it easier for people behind me to climb up as I'm doing it.
the thing you find close at hand that's the most rope-like, kind of pliable, is yet again the scarf that was given to you by your other self. So
Why don't I just get like a couple freaking mattress sheets to do that? Oh well.
you could, but I like it more narratively if it's the scarf again.
I know, it's just the scarf is getting really long all of a sudden.
It's a really nice
Although if
scarf.
I do it if it's like the scarf per floor, like it's not going the entire length of this thing.
It's got to be
You just-
Versace.
Alright,
All right.
so now I gotta figure out I'm doing this, because this is either an action to set up the scarf or the actual climbing motion itself.
I think it can all be kind of condensed into one big move. The scarf is, I guess you kind of bind it around the bar you want to climb for the first part, and then shimming up for the second part. So it's kind of a
I want this
two-step
to be
process.
sturdy, so I should use muscle.
Yeah, muscle's not bad here. Muscle makes a great deal of sense. Power up muscle. We have the right tools for the job here. Do you want to boost this in any way? Maybe Dan could give you a leg up here if he's willing to take on the stress.
What does my stress look like? I'm at stress 3.
It's not great, but it's not terrible.
You do get a
50-50
free
chance of
karma.
going up.
That's what you have to consider there.
Yeah, you get a karma and a 50-50 chance of more stress.
Yeah, let's give you a little boost.
All right.
Muscle boost here.
It's like a literal boost too.
Oh no, there is a failure here. Oh, I have to decide what happens now.
A double fail. I don't like this.
This is bad. Something has gone wrong here. I didn't even set the sentence yet. I wasn't sure we were ready to roll.
Ah,
That was
Well-
a safe one, right? That was
It
a
wasn't.
nice safe.
It was quite.
I'm more
literally
worried about
just
how
a
effective it's
standard.
supposed to be. Yeah. Okay.
Risky, deadly.
I think what happens here is Kachina is going to start up the outside of this building. She's shimmying up, and Dan is he's stood up with one leg on the side, pushing her up to the next level. And Kachina winds up on floor 3, like halfway between where she needs to be and where you started. Then climbs up a little bit further, and then takes a bit of a fall, kind of catches the center of her body on this platform here with a pretty big thud. And Kachina takes a level 1 harm, which is like a maybe
Is
bruised
that a
rib.
bruise or a scrape? Thing.
They're probably a bruise here. Probably hit
Okay.
the ground pretty hard, the second floor up.
Right.
But this failure means you're not up to the top yet, and it may be worse. Dan, maybe in that moment, was worried you actually fell, like literally fell off the side and fell 3 stories to your demise for a moment. So Dan's stress is the result of thinking that Kachina literally just took a deadly fall. But when you look up, you see that she's safe up there, Dan. You're separated for the time being. And I think the risk itself is kind of the only thing that's happened here. Not too much time has passed. You can still complete the process of climbing up Kachina, but you'll have to do
the
the
risk
rest
was
of the
physical
way.
damage.
Yeah. Now you're on the 3rd floor, but again, there's still a level of stealth you're able to operate with here. If you want to try to do this on your own now, Dan won't be able to help you the rest of the way.
Okay, I'm going to summon balance then, because I guess you know when you've just like recovered from like physical surgery and you just don't have the connection yet. I think that's what happened.
You got to get your like muscles all operating together again.
Yeah, the nervous system hasn't quite connected back yet. Oh goodness. Yeah, no, that'd be an awful ragdoll. Then I'd somehow like go into the wall and my legs would extend. You don't want that.
Yeah, and it's kind of the time where you would want to call out to one another to see how they're doing, but being a little bit quiet is important, and it's pretty noisy all around you. So you might not be able to hear one another at this point as Kachina proceeds on her own. Go ahead and awaken balance. I'll make
Yeah.
sure to do a sentence this time. I honestly think it's roughly the same. I think balance works here too.
Okay. I'm willing to take another injury. I think that's better than trying to stress myself.
Yeah? Again, I don't think it's too time consuming, so that's the risk here.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. You kind of get yourself ready, shimmy up a bit, flop onto the 4th level, probably behind where these Vori are positioned. There was a consequence here, and the consequence, Kachina, can be either you rattled this thing so much that somebody spotted it, or on the way up, you're just really fatigued and you take a 2nd level 1 harm when you reach the top. Maintain stealth for a level 1 harm, or maybe draw somebody's attention to your location.
I'm gonna maintain stealth. I think I want the stress to become physical rather than mental.
Okay. Then it's mostly just fatigue. I think maybe you sprained something finishing this climb.
Yeah.
But-
it'd be like it might have been if it was like a harm too, it'd be like a ligament tear.
Yeah. It's nothing that won't shake off with enough time.
Oh, right. I have to like. Hang on a second. I need to. There we go. All right, it says it right now. I just edited it manually because I didn't want to futz with your buttons.
Kachina is above and behind wherever this group of Vori are, and you can see them congregating down there. They're very close to one another.
Is that like some Cyberpunk 2099 fella that you just pulled up?
It's some AI generated guy. He definitely looks cyberpunk.
Yeah.
When you spot these guys, two of them are off of their bikes, and their leader is on his bike, as well as somebody else. They're talking to one another, and they're very close, like they're shouting to talk to one another. You see them in the distance, and they're not looking in your direction. They're looking further down the car park. They are waiting for Gary to show up in his truck. They are kind of like hunkered down here. You look around and you do not see their boss anywhere. So wherever Bogdanov himself is, you don't spot him.
All right. So while this is going on, it'll be a baton pass to Dan, just so I know what he's doing it simultaneously to what I just did. I think.
Yeah, for 1 karma, I can give you a bit of something good that you spot here that is kind of rare, but I think would be helpful if you want to buy it. Okay. Right beside you, there is a fire hose. You know those ones that are glassed into the wall?
In the UK, they call them a hose pipe. I found out.
It's one of them hose pipes.
Pipe hose
They
something.
call fire hoses hose pipe?
Oh no, they call a garden hose a freaking pipe hose or hose pipe. It's weird.
Something British.
Okay.
Anyway, there's a length of that right beside you and not too far away from where you climbed up. So if you want, you could loosen some of that and extend it down the side of the building for Dan. You wouldn't have to tell him what to do.
He would just see it and be like, okay.
He would see a hose coming down to hoist him on up.
Yeah. As long as he puts the lotion on. I'll lend that there. So yeah, I guess that hose is pretty damn sturdy then, so down it goes.
And you reel it out, and Dan, you see this flattened fire hose draping down the side of the building, dangling down bit by bit until the end of it reaches your level. Brian Chen is beside you when this hose appears from the outside of the building. Well, boss, me first or you?
Age before beauty. Cover me.
Oh, don't sell yourself short. You got both, friend. Gives you a leg up onto the rope. And
great at the water cooler, I think.
Kachina uses the muscle that kind of failed her before, is working pretty steadily now to just reel in Dan up the side of the building until Kachina and Dan are both in position behind these Vori.
The muscle spirit knows I took it for the impact anyway. It's alright.
And then after a few more moments, Chen joins you up at the top. Shit. There they are. What's the next move? We got our guns on us. We could fire on them if we wanted.
Are we expecting a distraction? Like, sorry, I forget what we're setting up a blockade, but are we the distraction? Who's doing the distracting here?
It's a good question. I think Gary is meant to catch these guys when they come looking for him. So if you don't do anything, if you just keep your eye on him, your group and Gary's group can form kind of a pincer attack. You might just be wanting to wait them out and tail them as covertly as possible until they run into the trap.
Yeah, I think
'cause
that's
they
the
go down
ideal.
and see 'em. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the ideal version of the plan. If you wanted to do something else, of course, I would never take away your agency, Dan.
And Chen has his gun ready in case you do want to start shooting.
Mr. Chen, do you remember the battle at Alexandria where Octavian waited for Alexander the Great to fall into his trap?
Yeah.
Well, this situation also calls for patience. Each of us will let's take a pillar, both of us. Or all three.
Yeah. That's what you meant.
So you wait and watch, and you only want to advance when the time is just right to move forward to keep them in view.
Yeah, we're gonna tail them.
You're waiting, you're tailing, and you don't want to be seen. And Dan is kind of leading the charge here, as Alexander of Macedonia once did in the great car park at Thermopylae. Shadow, I think, is a good pick.
Yeah. I want to do this and try to boost that for you if you want me to.
This is an important move, and I think Shadow is the only way to have gone about it. But it is a daunting strong. And covert ops, my god, that obviously factors in here, right?
Yeah.
Would hope so.
Yeah, if you make it decisive, this one roll initiates the pincer attack, I would imagine. Or you could lessen that risk involved.
Let's make it decisive, baby.
Daunting decisive, all the more reason to maybe boost the shadow here. So,
This is the best roll.
how do you want to boost this? And if so, how? You could put all of your shadow into this one moment and sever it after the fact, which is not a bad idea with everybody's stress as it is. Kachina could help out, take on some stress and karma.
I sort of think I'd rather sever than get any more stress on this party right now.
Okay. Put all of our shadow into this, and that makes it a D8. Which means, in a way, you can't fail, because you already have enough karma to pay for the stuff. So there we go. Excellent. And you don't get the consequence, which is even more perfect.
This is the right move.
All right. In that case, Kachina, Brian Chen, and Dan Cunningham will be behind this pack for this next scene. So Gary,
Casey would
you
have gotten the jump on him, I think.